We're about to make an awesome atmosphere inside of Serum 2, and we're going to do it with granular synthesis. But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another one of these awesome tips moving forward. And be sure to leave a comment letting us know what you want to see in future videos too. Your voice really does matter here. Okay, so today we're going to be taking a look at making atmospheres that you can feel, something that gives you a visceral response, and figuring out exactly what it is that makes them this way. We're not going to get too genre specific. We're going to keep it a little bit loose, but we do want it to be kind of digital and moody, something that could be used in a D&B or techno track just as easily as it could be used in a tense cinematic scene or a television moment. We also want this thing to evolve and change over time, so it needs to be flexible. Besides, you want to be able to use it in more than one of your projects, right? Okay, let's jump in. Okay, so I think starting by loading up one of the inharmonic noises from the noise oscillator is a great choice, but we're actually going to do that inside of a granular oscillator. It's just going to open up a lot more creative options for us. And it's also going to help us make something a lot more deeper and immersive in much quicker fashion. So we are going to dial in some good starting points here. First, we're going to set our unison to 2 so we can get some greater stereo width. And we're going to set, instead of one shot, let's set this up in forward reverse loop so we can play long sustained notes. And then it's just a matter of dialing in some good starting points for these parameters. We then want to actually use some LFOs to put this whole thing into motion. The LFOs will automate the twisting of knobs for us. All right, so we're going to put in a little bit of crossfade here. Okay, I'm going to start adding some randomization. And this is just to push against predictability and create more sense of evolution and change over time. And indeed, this thing is already starting to feel a bit atmospheric, right? We've got some moving noise. Let's go ahead and give this a bit more of a specific shape. There we go. Easy in, easy out. Nothing too abrupt, right? So it comes across as kind of natural. Now, we can basically do the same thing in oscillator 2, just using a different sound. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to pull up a granular oscillator, turn it on, and let's grab something maybe kind of weird here. How about something metallic, maybe? Let's play this. The first key to making an atmosphere that you can really feel, something that has true cinematic qualities to it, you need to create separation between the individual elements. There also needs to be a certain amount of glue and gel between the elements as well. So it's kind of a fine line. These first 2 elements that we're going to bring in, these are elements that we're going to try to kind of converge. We're going to hybridize them just a little bit. There's going to be some independence, some isolation, so we can feel the layered character of this sound. But then after that, we'll bring in another sound. We'll leave it wholly separate from these first 2 sounds. That's going to give us some very specific feelings when we hear it. So again, I'm just going to move this into a forward reverse loop here. And I'm actually going to restrain the size of the loop to be pretty small here. Good. Up the unison. Great, so now it's just a matter of doing what we did with oscillator A. Now, we want these sounds to stay pretty friendly and work inside of projects really easily. So we might actually want to go in and go into the warp mode here and just set up a filter, the high pass filter, just roll off just a little bit of the lows here. We can isolate our sound here. Okay, so just taking off the lowest frequencies. That'll help it stay a little more cooperative. That way, if you've got a bass track or a drone or something lower register, it's not going to compete. Okay, we've got our basic starting points. Let's go ahead and dial in some LFOs. Now, if you're unsure what kind of shape you want to reach for when you're making your own, Serum 2 actually has a really neat feature. You can randomize curved or flat LFOs, just generate them randomly. So let's try that out. Okay, great. So we're just going to smooth the LFO shape here just a little bit so it comes across as fairly natural. And then we're just going to assign this to a couple of things. Okay, I'm going to assign this first one to the scan knob. And this is going to affect the playback speed and directionality of the sample inside of this oscillator. And I'm also going to use this to affect the density on oscillator B. And I'm just going to slow that way down. And to make it even more organic, I would actually prefer to set this in hertz rather than a BPM sync. So I'm going to just bring this way down. Okay, next I'm just going to bring in our loop region a bit here on our noise. Just because I was hearing a little bit of the loop there. Next, we're just going to kind of do the same thing again. We're going to go for an LFO shape. I don't really like that one. I'm going to re-trigger that. Again, you can draw in your own shapes. This is just something to generate something that we wouldn't normally use, which is always fun. And it also saves a bit of time here in the video. All right, so let's say that we're liking this, and we're now going to take LFO2 and we're going to drop it on the density. So I'm just going to put that on length here. And we'll go back in length. We'll make this a little bit shorter. And then in LFO3, we're going to do the same thing. And create a little curved LFO that I like. That one's okay. Bring this guy down here. And we're going to set this one on the length parameter of oscillator A, and we're going to put it on the scan parameter of oscillator B. The reason why I swapped these two on oscillator B is just so neither of these oscillators have the same LFO assigned to the same parameter. Okay, so everything feels as though they're shifting sand and there is no predictability, no dependability for these guys. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's turn this one way down because I left that at 1/4 note BPM. Let's just set this at 16 bar. Okay, so far it's okay. We're still gonna add some spatial effects and stuff to kind of help this bloom, but the next most important feature is actually a sound that doesn't get treated in the same way. But before we even jump into the effects rack or anything, we need to get started on filtering. It's the first step of gelling these first two sounds together and our first opportunity to create separation between these sounds and whatever we end up loading into oscillator C. So let's load up our first filter. Make sure that we've got A and B routed into it. Okay, this is a nice, subtle atmosphere, right? In fact, I don't even know that we need to go visit the effects quite yet at this point. I think we've done a really good job of kind of putting these two sounds together. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next little bit here. Okay, so like the others, we're just going to go ahead and load up a granular oscillator here. All right, let's see here. How about something crunchy, like some Arctic ice. Okay, let's make sure that we are, again, operating in a forward reverse loop. So we're kind of in the same realm as oscillators A and B. So everything feels kind of similar, kind of related, if you will. We're also going to, like we did previously, we're going to dial in a little bit of randomness across each one of these parameters so they are less predictable. Okay, cool. So you'll notice what's happening here. The first two sounds, they've been filtered out, and we've removed a lot of those upper frequency elements. And when we add this Arctic visit noise, it's filling that space, right? There's really no competition for any of those frequencies. So they fly right out of the speakers and they hit our ears. But the other thing is that these first two sounds have been diffused. They've been altered, right? They've been obfuscated. And the noise coming out of oscillator C is really clear, right? It's very surface level. So now this kind of gives us this kind of skin crawling, kind of visceral response. We hear this kind of sound design being used a lot in sci-fi and thriller and horror movies. We also hear it in a lot of kind of immersive video game play. So this is a trick that we hear used all over the place, but this is how you can pull it off in your own productions. Okay, so previously we carved out a little bit of space in those lower frequencies from our first noise sound here. So let's go ahead and fill up that space with some controlled sub bass. Oh yeah. Definitely fills it up quite a bit. We go way low. Now we can hear that the unfiltered noise coming from oscillator C is very much translating as a surface texture with that sub rumble weighing the whole thing down. It's providing the sense of deepness and gravity. It's a really nice juxtaposition. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is start to better define the details in our sound, and we can reach for some distortion to do that. It's going to conjure up extra harmonics in our sound, and we can audition maybe the diode distortion options here for this saturation and see what we think. Okay, this one's a little grumbly. Let's try diode 2. This is perfect. This is great. This is nice because it's bringing together our different elements right now, right? We've got the sub bass and that surface texture noise being pulled into the main body of our sound right now. Okay, from here we can add a little bit of multiband compression. And again, this is going to uh, help define more finer details. I'm just going to sustain a note here while I play. Bring the threshold up is going to bring these details right up to the surface for us. Okay, so we wrangled in the low quite a bit there, and we brought a lot more detail to the high end and the mids. Yeah, that's feeling a little bit better. Okay, so let's add just a little bit of reverb for some space here. We can use a hall for this one. We just want to cut out a fair bit of those lows and a little bit of the highs to better control what kind of frequencies are bumping up against the original sound. Let's go down really low. Yeah. Those little knocks are now big rumbles, huh? Pretty flexible patch, all in all. I think we're getting pretty close. We need to dial in some macros, which allow us to turn one knob and affect many parameters at once. Now, I'm going to make a whole bunch of different decisions from this point forward. And if you want to know exactly how I finish this sound and make it truly my own, make sure that you download the free preset. The link is in the description below. And don't forget to ding that bell so you know when we post our next video. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope to see you again here soon. And now it's time to go play with that new free preset you just downloaded, right? All right, cheers.